Good afternoon. Welcome to Plans and Permits 101 with Western Reserve Community Fund. Western Reserve Community Fund is a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. We've been operating as such since 2019, and it was created to support community development through flexible, low-cost financing and technical assistance. Um, Thank you very much for joining today. A couple reminders. We are recording this session, so it will be available to you after this recording is finished. We'll send that out as well as some resources. All participants are muted today. You can use the chat feature if you have any questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end. And there is a survey. It should be up on your screen. Please take a moment to fill that out for us. It helps us in our work. My name is Anna King. I'm our Senior Project Manager here at Western Reserve Community Fund. I'm very glad to be having this Plans and Permits 101. Welcome to our speakers today, Chad Cobelt of City of Akron and Chris Randalls from the Summit County Building Standards. Today we are going to take 30 minutes and overview the process. That's going to include planning your project, the permit process, common pitfalls and delays, where to start, and then we'll wrap up and have a Q&A session. Along with me today is Carla Peters, our Senior Loan Administrator. Carla, take it away.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to start the questions off with planning your projects, so the beginning stages. And Chad and Chris, just jump in, whoever wants to answer first. The first question we have is, what type of work requires a permit?
Chris, I'll let you go first because
Okay.
yours are more obvious.
All right. So I'm Chris Randalls. I'm with Summit County Building Standards. I've been with the county for about 6 years now, and I run the department. We have about 32 people in the department. We're one of the larger departments in the state, and we're excited whenever we can work on projects with people. So for what type of work requires a permit, I would initially say all of the above. There are a lot of requirements in the code books. There are certain exceptions to what does not need a permit. But a lot of times it's easier just for you to give us a call or shoot us an email and say, hey, I'm planning this project. For example, today we received a phone call. Somebody was replacing conveyor belts in their business, taking out existing conveyor belts, putting new conveyor belts in. Well, the way our code is written, that's considered processing equipment. And since they're replacing existing equipment, I don't need to worry about egress from the site for people to be able to get out safely in case of an emergency, because those routes have already been established. They're already existing in the site. They already have power to those conveyor belts, so we don't need to worry about hooking those up. So in that case, no, a permit was not required. But if it were like a new facility and they were new conveyor belts, the conveyor belts themselves don't necessarily need a permit, but the electric to those belts would need a permit, and we would need to do a general life safety plan to make sure the proper egress is met for the facility so people can get out safely. So, what type of work requires a permit often depends on what that work is, unfortunately. There's probably about 5 pages in our code book of what requires permits and what is not required. Basic kind of rule of thumb is replacing replacing carpet, painting walls, putting laminate flooring down. Generally, those type of things will not require a permit from us. But once you start getting into fixtures, replacing a lot of plumbing fixtures, or you're replacing electrical fixtures, those will start to require permits. Now, if you're replacing one fixture, we can consider it repair. It doesn't necessarily need a permit. But if you're going into a facility and you're going to replace all the lights, then at that point, yes, it would require an electric permit. And we would want to come out and do inspections of those installations. So sorry, I didn't really give a whole lot of detail on that, but unfortunately with construction, it's hard for us to fit everything in a nice, tidy little box. But you're going to hear me saying this a lot throughout this webinar is if you ever have a question, please shoot us an email, give us a call. I've got 32 people here on staff that are more than happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Chris. Chad, do you have anything to add to that from the city's point
Yeah,
of view?
so outside of Chris's building code related permits, there are a number of city related permits that may be required for work depending on what you're doing. Predominantly, city permits pertain mostly to the exterior of the building or site related items. So, dealing with drainage, any kind of utilities that are coming through, uh, anything to deal with the right of way stuff along those lines, predominantly are what the permits are that come from our department. And then, we have things along the lines of we issue our raising permits. So if you're removing a section of the building or whatever from as part of your project, we issue that permit, things along those lines. Just to kind of cover for the most part. But like Chris said, it just varies depending on the work that you're doing and what you're trying to do. And, we're available to answer those questions as well.
Great, thank you so much. Quickly, if you can, the next question from the reviewer's side, what makes a set of plans easy to approve and what gets a submittal kicked back? Again, we'll try to keep this brief in the interest
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah, for us, so we kind of have a two-step process. We do a plan approval or a plan review, and then after we have a plan approval in place, then we can issue permits. So a lot of times when we get plans into review, um, I'll probably focus more on commercial. On the commercial side of things, the big thing for us is the code requires a state licensed design professional is the language in the code. And that's basically an architect or an engineer to submit designs to us for review for code compliance. Unfortunately, that's not our requirement. That's a state requirement that's in the code. The only leeway we have for something like that, if it's something that's considered non-technical, a lot of times if you're adding a non-bearing wall made out of steel studs, not wood, things like that, sometimes those we wouldn't necessarily have to have a design document. It could be something submitted similar to like a house plan that would be drawn by anybody. But that's probably the first biggest thing that we get kicked back is when somebody wants to do a project, like at a church, they'll have one of their members volunteer to help out. That they're involved with residential construction type of thing, and then once they submit to us, then it's a different world with commercial construction and the codes. Their residential code is one thing. But the commercial code is a lot different. There's a lot more requirements for depending on the use, the size of the structure, whether it's going to need fire suppression or not, and egress. So that's all technical design analysis that then requires those designs to be done. And once we have a designer involved, especially if it's one of our local ones that's gone through our process quite a bit, they know kind of what we're looking for, the basics. They give us the basics of the building. They'll give us the building type, the use group, the square footage, if it's an existing building, whether it has an existing fire alarm system or fire suppression system. And then those are kind of the building blocks that we use when we do our reviews to determine if something's compliant or not. A lot of times, if we're missing that information and somebody doesn't really understand what that information is or why we need it, then that's what really starts to bog down the plan review process with us.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to pass it on to Anna to talk about the permitting process.
All right. So, um, which approvals come from the city and which come from the county? We get that question a lot as people are starting to plan their process.
Yeah, probably a quick rule of thumb is any building code related item. So that's the actual construction of the building itself. That would be coming to the county for an approval, but that would also, no matter what, go to the city for their local planning and zoning approvals. If you're building an addition, you're going to have setback requirements for zoning. The city needs to review those to make sure that the zoning code that the proposed structure is in compliance with the zoning code. So they're going to be looking at zoning code, planning things. They're going to be looking at, um, what type of materials you're using, what the building's going to look like to make sure it fits within the development guidance that they may have. We're looking at how the building is constructed and and what systems are being installed in that building. The mechanical, electrical systems, plumbing systems, life safety, that type of
Okay.
thing. Did I
Okay.
miss anything, Chad?
Well, a fair amount actually.
Well, lay it on us,
It,
Chad.
yeah. So, as Chris said, yeah, zoning is one aspect of what the city's review is. We also do cover fire review as well for, especially since we're talking small business kind of loans, things along those lines commercially. But we also look at all aspects related to the business as far as the site plan goes. We look over the drainage, we look over the parking, we look at how the utilities are getting to the building, any kind of disturbance within the right of way. Um, so yeah, so basically when you submit to us, we're getting your entire city approval. So you don't have to run around. You don't have to run over to the zoning office. You don't have to run to the fire department.
Mhm.
You have to run over to the sewer department, water department, be handled in
It's all
one spot.
consolidated.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
And do these processes and approvals happen at the same time, or like county first, city after, city first, county after? How does that work?
So
Um,
go ahead, Chad.
yeah, yeah. So we tell people they can do it at the same time. The only difference is the the way our agreement is that the county cannot issue permits until they receive the approval from the city of Akron. Or
Okay.
in Chris's case, since he's got such a large area that he covers, it's predominantly for every area in which he covers. Until he gets the local municipality's approval,
Hmm.
he's not supposed to issue permits.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's in our county code as well. So
Okay.
we always encourage people when they reach out to the zoning department, whether it's the city of Akron or another locality, reach out to us to see what our application requirements are, and then if you do have a set of construction documents ready to go, submit to both the local community like Akron and to us at the same time. Um, Depending on the complexity of the project,
Hmm.
we may have several iterations of the review that happen. We'll initially receive a review and review it. State law says we have up to 30 days to
Hmm.
review anything we receive. Obviously, we don't try to take it out to 30 days. My goal is 14 calendar days or less that we get things out. Right now, for new projects that come in for the first time, we're kind of around 20 days, right, for that. But then
Okay.
once we have a list of comments that we send back out, then the businesses team will work on that, update the plans. When they get those back to us, then my goal is to turn those around in 7 calendar days or less, and we're pretty good with that. So if we can get through um, 2 reviews or less, depending on how much time your team would take to update documents, we can get you out in less than a month. And that's if everything runs well, we get all the information up front type of thing. But then once we do have a plan approval in place, like Chad said, then you would have to present a copy of the community's zoning and planning approval to us. And then once we have that in hand, then we can start to issue permits for the construction.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
and our review time frame is roughly about the same, the 14 calendar days.
Okay.
We're again, much like Chris, we're running over because our reviews touch more hands than Chris's does. Um, but yeah, to go to your next question, a realistic time frame probably would be a cushion of 1 to 2 months, as
Okay.
long as it's a relatively non-complex project. The more complex, obviously, the longer. But somebody who is remodeling or refurbishing a building, I would say 1 to 2 months because you're going to
Mhm.
go through at least 2 review cycles, and then you've got making the changes, getting that resubmitted. You know, that'll take
That's
time.
Yeah, that's good to know. We have a lot of our particular clients are first time doing this type of work, and so that's really helpful to know. I think as we think about that, moving into common pitfalls and delays, Carly, you have some questions about that.
Yes. So I guess the big one is what is the most or some of the most common mistakes that you see business owners make, particularly small businesses, as they're going through this process?
Yeah, I think for me, it's seeing that business owner that may not be familiar with the construction process, trying to do that themselves, not reaching out, finding help, finding professionals that can help them through the process. Because at that point, there's a lot of trying to educate on code from our point, but we're not allowed to offer design advice. So we can't tell somebody how to do something. They have to prepare a document that shows us how they're going to do it, and then we can tell them if that's code compliant or not. So for us, I think that's the biggest thing we see, and it's not that we don't want people to be able to do things for themselves, but especially in the commercial arena, this isn't DIY. There are a lot of people out there that are professionals that have careers preparing plans or managing construction projects, and I would encourage people to reach out to those folks.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with Chris on that. The biggest delay is the business owner kind of wanting to control the process. Um, and they tend to be the middleman and then they play phone tag. So it's back and forth with what needs to be changed to their designer. And then if they don't understand, then they come back to us, and then they run back to their designer, and it's back and forth, to try and get it. So um, don't try to be the middleman unless you absolutely have to, or you're familiar with the process.
Right. We do experience that with our business owners as well. I'm just trying to, and sometimes to save money, act as their own GC,
Yeah,
which
Yeah.
can complicate things.
And and the other thing is, no, your project is never too small that we don't worry about it.
correct.
Okay, great. Just a quick reminder, if anyone has questions, to go ahead and pop those in the chat. We will get to them either at the end of the webinar or we will follow up via email with the answers to those questions. So the next question would be, what should someone check for as they're moving into an existing space? Like, for example, a build out for a storefront.
hmm I think the first thing they should ask for is a copy of, it's called a certificate of occupancy. That's a legal document for the building that shows how the building uh, was constructed and approved according to whichever code cycle it was in when that construction happened. If that exists and the owner or the landlord of the space has that, that's going to go a long way in helping to develop whatever plans they may have in that space. Especially with getting through our process. And it really helps too up front if we do if we do like a pre-construct or a pre-consultation meeting. Those are the kind of things that we're going to need to be able to start kind of putting those building blocks together in the code, figure out which direction needs to happen through the code process to be able to get compliance. The other thing is what was the previous use of that space? If you're wanting to open a restaurant and the previous use of that space was an office space, then in my world, in the building code, that's considered a change of occupancy, and then that kicks in a lot of other requirements. And just to have open eyes to that and to understand that you're going to have to start looking at things like accessibility upgrades. Uh, you're going to have to look at perhaps life safety device upgrades, whether you're going to have to put in a suppression system or a fire alarm, that type of thing. So depending on what you're using, that's or what you want to use that space for, it will kick in other items in the code just to help with the overall safety of that structure.
Thank you, Chris. Anything to add to that, Chad?
No, predominantly most of that falls under Chris's jurisdiction as far as checking a space. Again, most of our requirements apply to the site or under zoning code, which again, the zoning code is much vaguer than the building code. So multiple types of businesses could potentially go into a space, but then again, you go back to what Chris said, you're going from an office space to a restaurant. The requirements for that space change dramatically.
Right, great. Thank you both. Anna is going to just talk about where someone should start in the process.
Yeah, so this is a lot of good information. I think to your point, Chris, zoning sounds like a good place to start if you're looking at a space, you know what you want to put in there. Is there anything else that you wish applicants asked your offices up front, to get ahead of the process?
It's sometimes it's you don't know what to ask for. So we're always willing to, if you reach out to us, if you call us or shoot us an email with a question, or you say, hey, I'm looking to do this. What's kind of your typical process involved? We're more than happy to go over that with folks. We'll even do meetings with folks before they even have plans together. I do that all the time on small to large projects where if you just want to come in and discuss your project with us, we'll sit down, we'll go over it. We'll start asking a lot of questions, depending on what you tell us, that'll kind of fire off our synapses and start thinking about, okay, how do I go through the existing building code for compliance on something like this? And we can start kind of putting a roadmap together for approval. And then once you reach out to design professional or other professionals, you can say, hey, I met with the building department. This is kind of what they're thinking. And then it just would start, I think, start that whole project a lot easier. Or maybe you think that a lot of times we have folks that reach out to us and they think they're going to have a big project, big hard time with something. And for us, it's a minor issue in the code actually, and it's pretty simple for us to get them permits and get them rolling. So it's just, I mean, my biggest thing is just communication. Don't be afraid to call us and ask us something.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say, oh, where is that at? Oh, what do you want to do? Oh, okay, we're gonna keep an eye on you, type of thing. We don't operate like that. We're here to help, because ultimately, if we get people to come in, pull their permits, do everything code compliant, structures are safer. That's what we care about.
Yeah.
Great.
It- just just ask questions.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Don't be afraid of us. Like Chris said, we're not running around looking for people making mistakes. We don't have enough people to do that, and we want to help you guys get your business or project done correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's something really unique about the greater Akron area is that genuinely everybody wants any business that can to succeed, and we all put in where we can. WRCF helps through lending and also technical assistance as we're working through those projects. We are certainly not general contractors or project managers of those projects. And do you have, so we get a question a lot of the time where when do I bring a general contractor in? Should I do the architect engineer first, get plans, and then a general contractor? Or does it work better to all work together? Do either of you have an opinion on that?
Um,
That's a really
I,
good question.
yeah, it is. Obviously, the architect or designer is the first person that needs to come in. Now, whether or not that architect or designer works with a contractor specifically, um, that's
Mhm.
a whole nother story. What ultimately ends up happening is if you have your designer, you can get your approvals, but you can't get your permits until you get your contractor. So again, that ends up delaying.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Chad, but it probably all depends on the size of your project too. I mean, if it's a smaller project, let's say you're moving into a storefront and you're going to open a restaurant, there's a lot of contractors out there that are design build. They have a design build capacity that they have architects or engineers that they work with or that are employed directly by them. So that's kind of a tough question. I think
Sure.
I think for that one, we would go with D, all the above. Just start making phone calls and talking to as many people as you can right away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. We're going to go, there's a question in the chat, and then we'll go to some other questions as well. So someone has asked, how does the change of occupancy change with a historic building, NPS registered?
Yeah, so historic buildings, there are some exceptions in the code for historic buildings. So for existing buildings, we have something that's called the Ohio Existing Building Code. And whenever there's a change of occupancy, there are certain requirements that kick in, like accessibility. You'll have to have an accessible entrance, an accessible restroom, handicap accessible. But there are some exceptions for historic structures. If it's a registered historic structure, whether locally with the city or on a national registry, it does give us some latitude. It doesn't give us 100% latitude. So when things like life safety come into play, that's obviously going to be we're going to have a more critical eye to that type of thing. But when it comes to things like accessibility, then that does give us the ability to be able to work with you a little more on some of those code requirements to be able to get around those requirements.
Yeah, from the city standpoint, I've seen only a handful of buildings come through that were historical. Um, we do have some restrictions of what you can and can't do as far as the building. But again, that goes through zoning, which again, it takes a little more additional time with that review process when you start getting into a historical building.
I'm not sure, Anna, if we have 2 minutes, so I'm not sure if we have time to ask any additional questions. Um,
Yeah,
let's,
go
Chris
ahead.
or Chad, you have something that you'd like to add quickly, um, as we wrap up?
Um, yeah, just real quick so that people have an understanding of our size and what we do. We cover, so within Summit County, we cover most jurisdictions in Summit County. The only areas that we don't cover are the city of Macedonia, the city of Twinsburg, Stowe, Monroe Falls, and Peninsula and Reminderville. They have their own departments, but everything else we in the county we pretty much cover. Just so everybody knows, last year we issued 1,366 commercial plan approvals, and then we have multiple permits that are issued under those. We issued over 2,000 residential plan approvals. We did over 53,000 inspections, construction inspections last year. And value of the construction that came through this office last year was 109,686,825. So I say that to let everybody know that we're a large department. We see a lot of work, but it's cool because we see everything. Nothing scares us. Whatever you got, we're going to tackle. We're going to figure out a solution, and a path forward. And even with the volume that we have, our philosophy is everybody's job is important to us. So don't think that you're too small. Pick up the phone, give us a call, and let's talk about your project and get you moving forward.
Yeah, I think just kind of piggybacking off of that, I know Chris and we work really well together. As a matter of fact, we share a lobby together. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, don't be afraid to come in and have a conversation with us. We'll do everything we can to keep your project on track and moving as smoothly as possible.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for your time. We appreciate it. I know this was a short time to get through a lot of questions. And to that end, we are going to send out contact information for both Chris and Chad, as well as our office. We will also send this webinar out and some questions that we weren't able to get to in this chat. We'll also send some details and answers for those questions. Um, And then, of course, any follow-up resources, feel free to email us, to email them. Again, gentlemen, thank you for your time today. We very much appreciate it and the time you put into small business. Um, if anyone has any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, have a great afternoon.
We'll see everybody.